Hi, this is Zach with Warren & Wound. Today I'll be taking a look at the Muhle Glashutte Sar Rescue Timer. This is a really cool watch. I've actually owned this for quite some time. I've been kind of thinking about doing a review for a while. This is unlike really any watch you're going to see by any other brand. Muhle Glashutte is a brand in Germany. They've been around in one form or another since the 1800s, and they actually started as a precision instrument brand. And that kind of set up, I think, the tone for the brand. It's a very kind of stoic and precise, kind of no-fuss brand that has, and now in its most recent incarnation, really making watches since the mid to late 90s. This watch was first unveiled, and I believe around 2002. And what's really cool about this, as the name describes, it's an SAR watch, which is search and rescue. And this was designed alongside basically the German Marine search and rescue teams to actually meet their needs for really like a super rugged watch that they can wear that can just take a severe beating if necessary, as well as go in the water. So this watch is actually 1,000-meter water resistance, despite being actually a very svelte watch. It's just built like a rock. It retails now for, on the rubber, $2,390, or with a bracelet for $2,490. So it definitely is an expensive watch, but what you can't see is really the level of care and detail that Muhle takes and puts into the watch as a whole. So as you might know, the watch says Glashutte on it, and there has to be a certain percentage of the watch, as well as the movement, that are actually made in Glashutte. So the rotor, the screws, this movement has been disassembled, re-put back together, and decorated totally by them, including having their patented woodpecker regulation, which has a much more shock protection to it. So there's a lot more going on here that meets the eye. So let's get into it now. The case of the SAR Rescue Timer is really unlike anything I've seen before. It's very unique. It measures 42 millimeters by 49 millimeters lug to lug. Though, as you can see, the lug shape here is quite unique. I'll talk about it in a second. And about 13 millimeters thick, which makes it actually, I think, a really kind of nice medium size for a 1,000 meter watch, which, typically I feel like you're used to these giant watches being, having such high water resistance. But this one's very compact feeling in a very, sturdy way, which is, gives it just a great feeling overall. So as you can see, the shape is kind of very simple and a little bit strange. So, you have this kind of cylindrical central area, but actually when you look at it kind of down, you'll see how it kind of slopes up, kind of, in a trapezoidal shape, sort of. So it's not really a slab side thing, which gives it a very different feeling. And then the lugs here are these kind of shrouded lugs. So the lug width is actually 20 millimeters, but this area is actually 25.5 meters. So the lugs themselves would then be 2 millimeters wide, and the strap fits in within here. And then it has a screw bar for extra security. So there is no chance of a spring bar popping out. Off of 4 o'clock here, you have a screw down crown. It's a very, very sturdy crown with this very, kind of little crown guard here. On this crown, you have a little bit of like a windmill symbol, which I believe is their kind of logo. Overall, there's this kind of sense of a very fluid curvature going around the whole case. I really feel like, obviously this is meant to be in the water, but it has a feeling of kind of a marine instrument, which I really like. This doesn't feel like an aestheticized watch. It feels like a real kind of tool or piece of equipment. Another unique feature I'm sure you've already been looking at is this black ring here, and that is in fact a rubber bezel. It's very cool. It adds shock protection, adds kind of a bumper. This is really a watch you can wear and kind of not have to feel like well, if I bump this into anything, it's going to be damaged. In fact, it's meant to take a bit of a beating, which is very cool. Adding to that is also the fact that it has a 4 millimeter thick sapphire crystal that's exceptionally thick, and does have an internal ground cyclops on there, which we'll look at more when we talk about the dial. Flipping the watch over now, see if I can show it. It has a very, very simple, plain case back, very solid, just installed there, screwed in, a lot of text about the brand and about the watch, but nothing really aesthetic once again. The finishing on the case, very simple, satin with a polished crown, which is a little funny, but like I said, this really it's just nothing fussy about it. This is a very simple watch with a very kind of bold, strong design. the dial of the SAR rescue timer is once again really simple and straightforward. If they say on their website that with all of their watches, legibility at a glance is really the first thing that they consider with all their designs, considering the functional and purposeful aspect of this being a search and rescue watch. You can understand that being really paramount to the layout and the dial. So, as you can see, it's very simple, bold shapes. You have these large triangles at 12, 3, 6, and 9. The 12 o'clock triangle faces another way and has two dots on the very top. Actually, this sort of almost references classic Flieger watch design. Those two dots helped you orient basically which way was 12 o'clock at a glance. Should let's say up, not necessarily be a relative thing. You can understand that underwater, in motion and such. Then for the indices in between that, you have these just simple rectangles. And on the inside of each of those rectangles is then a small digit indicating, the minutes or the seconds at that time. So you have all the information you need here, very clearly presented. And then there are these little white lines around as well. Off at 4 o'clock here you have the date presented in a circular window with a white line. As I mentioned before, this watch features a internally ground cyclops. I know some people don't like cyclopses. I personally like them, external or internal, but the internal is especially nice because I feel like it's very low key and you almost don't notice it. But it does emphasize and enlarge the date, making it much easier to read at a glance. It's not doing it to an extremely high degree. It's maybe like 1.5 times, but nevertheless, it is noticeable. And I happen to think it also just aesthetically having a little detail works with the kind of overall very functional, technical look of the watch. The hands here are kind of simple fence post shaped hands for the minute and the hour, and then a stick seconds hand with a little triangle pointer here. They all feature lume. All of the major markers on the dial feature lume. This is one of the best glowing watches I've ever had. There's nothing, you're not using anything special. I believe it's just a very, very well applied superluminova. I feel like this watch is always glowing and it glows for a really, really long time. Clearly also very necessary in extreme circumstances as this watch was designed to be in. One thing to note on this watch I'm showing you here, it says 1,000 meters. I believe that's actually, the watch has been updated since then. Now it says 100 atmospheres. Same thing, just written out in a different way. On the wrist, the rescue timer is a really kind of masculine, bold watch that, I think the idea of kind of it being a very technical instrument and being, a very functional piece really comes across. While I think in the end it has a very kind of a masculine aesthetic and is sporty and cool looking, there is something purely functional about it at the same time. And like it is a piece of equipment, it is a tool for use in extreme circumstance, and that really just comes across in the design. Like I said, it's 43 millimeters, so it's medium size, but I feel like the shape of the watch, the whole thing kind of curves in this direction, and it's not very long lug to lug. So there's nothing really sticking out, jutting out. Although the watch can definitely take a beating, it's also designed to be to not snag anything. Obviously that would be bad. This is a watch that needs to be able to be put into an extreme circumstance. So it's a really remarkable kind of ergonomic design, despite the fact that it kind of just looks so kind of functional. I love the way this rubber bumper looks. I think that really adds kind of a unique design to element to the watch that no other watch I have experience has. The dial then, it's very functional, but it also has a little bit of kind of a vintage look to it. I see this and I think of old Turner Contikis, which from like the 50s and 60s, which had similar kind of triangles. So there is something simply nice about it. It is a very rugged, sporty watch, but at the same time it's kind of sober, so I feel like you can wear it in kind of various circumstances. This version here that I have has this rubber bracelet that has a deployment clasp. It's a really nice rubber. It has this nice kind of geometry to it, a bunch of different contours. As you can see, it kind of flows very directly into these lugs here. And then it has this deployment clasp with a little bit of writing on it. This is the kind of rubber strap that you actually cut to size. So once you cut it, obviously it's kind of permanent. The previous owner of this watch actually had a thinner wrist than me, so this is a little too tight for me personally, so I actually wear it on a different strap, which I'll show you shortly. But you know, it is the kind of thing you size it once, you wear it, and it's very streamlined, very svelte. I'll also show you this clasp does feature a dive extension on the other side, so you know, you flip that out, and then if I were to close this again clumsily, you know, it would fit over a you know, a wetsuit like that. Great alternate option, strap option for this watch is a D-Model Chronisimo leather strap. One of the things that, you know, you have to consider with a strap for this that the you know, Muhle manufactured straps do is that how they kind of fit into this shrouded lug shape. So it is a 20mm lug, and if you just attached a 20mm strap, you'd have like a funny overhang here on the lugs. What's great about the Chronisimo strap is that it has this kind of winged structure, so it actually flows up into the lugs here, so you get a much more seamless look. And then the leather itself with this contrast stitching, these folds, it's a really rugged strap that is actually also waterproof, and I feel like it's the only real leather strap that's going to kind of match the kind of utilitarian, you know, an intense look of the watch itself. These are about $80. They can be a little hard to track down, but they're definitely worth it. This is a very cool strap. I think for rather, you know, probably any watch, but for something that, you know, is this kind of sporty, I think it's perfect. The SAR came in this really, really badass kind of metal box. It's a brushed steel, it's heavy, has this bright fluorescent sticker on it, as you can see. It's, you know, really kind of sets up the story for the watch inside, which is to say that this is, you know, a functional instrument that can really take a beating. I love the buckle here, or the you know, the closure mechanism. It's like a spring-loaded clasp. You know, you pop it open, it's got a really nice feeling to it. You know, you open that up. Inside is very simple. So there's a little book with a guarantee about it, and then the watch presented in, you know, just a little slot and kind of a dense foam. It has this rubber ring around it that, you know, the box closes on. And I'd imagine creates some level of actually water tightness. It's a really cool collector feeling box. So it's the kind of thing that, you know, I've definitely wanted to keep around. To wrap up, the Muhle Glashutte Sar Rescue Timer, like I kept saying, is really unlike any watch you've seen before. It has a totally unique case design. You know, it has this rubber bezel, which is just kind of strange and interesting and gives the watch a very rugged look, and functionally seems like it's a rugged element. This watch is meant to take a beating. It's meant for probably some of the most, you know, extreme situations, being a search and rescue watch. So as a daily kind of tool diver watch or something like that for somebody like myself who doesn't really get into much trouble, you know, it's just this great sport watch that, you know, I feel very confident when I wear, as can, you know, really just take anything I dish at it. Like I said, the watch is fairly expensive at this point, $2,390 with the rubber bracelet, so that is more than we, you know, watches we typically talk about. But I really think the elements that make a watch, you know, worth kind of a higher price are really there. The manufacturing of this watch is exceptional. As I said, you know, the movement is kind of rebuilt. It is a Sellita SW200, but it has been given the Muhle treatment, so it's not like other Sellita SW200 movements out there. You know, basically, if you want kind of an ultimate tool watch, you know, I don't think that there are many brands that are offering something quite as authentic as this, you know, other than, you know, probably other German brands that do the kind of overbuilt thing. So please read the full review on Worn and Wound. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. Thank you.